studying your last two. I swim med tid when they turned in. The staring down to mute. And can learn the pole that sunk he died.
Welcome to the course. To make learning Canadian corporate tax easier and more practical, we'll use two realistic companies throughout this course instead of unrelated examples. By following the same businesses across multiple lessons, you'll see how information flows from the financial statements into the different T2 schedules, and eventually into a completed corporate tax return. This approach helps you understand how the pieces fit together, rather than simply memorizing individual forms or tax rules. As you move through the course, you'll repeatedly work with these companies, allowing you to build confidence through familiarity and repetition. You'll learn where the numbers come from, how they move through the tax return, and why different schedules are required. Think of these companies as your learning case studies or practice clients. Every new concept you learn will be applied to these same businesses, making the entire learning process more logical and much easier to follow. By mastering these examples, you'll develop a strong foundation for preparing real-world small business T2 corporate tax returns with confidence. Connor owns Baker's Dozen Limited, a retail bakery that sells physical products such as bread, pastries, and cakes directly to customers. Because this is a retail business, inventory plays an important role. The company must track opening inventory, purchases, and closing inventory to calculate the cost of goods sold. This makes the accounting and tax preparation process slightly more detailed. Typical expenses for a retail business include ingredients, employee wages, rent, and utilities. Since inventory affects profit calculations, retail businesses generally have a higher level of complexity than service businesses. On the other hand, Jane owns RightSoft Inc, a software and professional services company. Instead of selling products, the business earns revenue by providing services to clients. Since there are no physical products to sell, there is usually no inventory to track and no cost of goods sold to calculate. As a result, service businesses often have simpler financial statements and fewer tax adjustments. The most common expenses for a service business include salaries, software subscriptions, office costs, and other operating expenses related to providing professional services. Throughout this course, we'll use both of these companies to demonstrate how different business types affect accounting records, tax calculations, and the preparation of the T2 corporate tax return. By comparing a retail business with a service business, you'll develop a practical understanding of how the same tax rules can apply differently depending on the nature of the business. As you progress through this course, you'll notice that the same two companies are used repeatedly across the different T2 schedules. This isn't by accident, it's one of the most effective ways to learn corporate tax. Instead of introducing new businesses for every topic, we'll continue building on familiar examples. This allows you to focus on understanding the tax concepts rather than trying to understand a new business each time. You'll see how information flows from the company's financial statements into Schedule 125, then into Schedule 1, and finally through other important schedules such as Schedule 2, Schedule 4, Schedule 8, Schedule 50, and the provincial corporate tax forms. As you work through these schedules, you'll learn where the numbers come from, how the schedules are connected, how accounting information is converted into taxable income, and why each adjustment is required under CRA rules. The goal of this course is not to memorize forms or numbers. Instead, you'll develop an understanding of the logic behind corporate tax. Once you understand the flow of information and the purpose of each schedule, preparing a T2 return becomes much more intuitive. By following the same learning journey from the business itself to its financial statements, through the various tax schedules, and finally to a completed corporate tax return. You'll gain the practical knowledge needed to work on real client files with confidence. These two companies are much more than simple examples. They are your training ground for mastering the fundamentals of Canadian corporate tax and building the confidence to prepare real-world small business T2 returns.